Hello and welcome. You're joining me live. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're talking about the consumer spending, ladies and gentlemen, in the country, which has gone down drastically in the course of last few years. Now, if I tell you that this is happening for the very first time, it's very surprising because it's happening for the very first time in last 40 years that Indians are spending less than ever. Last time such a dip was noted in 1970s. So since 1970s, this is for the first time that Indians do not have money and they're spending very little. Let me give you a comparative figure as to how much are we monthly spending. In the year of 2011 and 12, an average Indian was spending approximately 1,501 rupee in a month. That for the very first time in the last 4 decades, which is last 40 years, has gone down to 1,446 rupees, a dip of approximately 3.7%. While it may not be a very drastic difference, it is important and it stands out, as I mentioned, because this is happening for the very first time in last 40 years, which essentially means that people are not buying anymore, that people do not have the money to buy. Now, if you talk about the rural demand, because the number has essentially gone down because the rural demand has gone down. So in rural India, the demand has decreased by as much as 8.2%. In urban India, demand has decreased, or spending rather has decreased by approximately 2%. So while rural Indians are not buying and the demand has decreased by 8.8%, in urban India it has decreased by approximately 2%. Now these are very, very important figures, and these bring to light some very important subject matters. The first is that rural India is not spending on essential items. So your rural Indians, or Indians rather as whole, are not paying to buy items such as your salt, your sugar, your oil, and these are essential commodities. So Indians as a whole are not buying essential commodities, and that is because they do not have the money. So there are 3 things that come to light from this finding. Remember, this is a finding of the government. This is the finding of National Statistics Organization, which is a government of India body. And these findings came to light yesterday through a leaked report of NSO, a leaked report that was put out by a media organization. And there are 3 things essentially that this report tells you. And this is very important because the first is that Indians are buying less than ever when it comes to essential food items, essential items, which means that they do not have the money. There is an increased instances of poverty in the country. People are not buying because there is no disposable income to buy anything anymore. The second important data that comes out from this report is that people are buying less and less of essential items, essential food items, which essentially means that there are increased cases of malnutrition in the country. And experts suggest that because Indians are not buying food items like your oil, your salt, your sugar, there is a feeling here on your spices, there is a feeling here on that there will be increased instances of malnourishment in the country. And third important point that is now coming to light is that the government of India gave a go-ahead for this report to be released back in June of 2019. But this report was not released because, according to sources, it had adverse findings. These findings were not in line with Government of India expected, and therefore this report was once again put on hold. It was put on the back burner and it wasn't released. So here's an adverse report that is now released by a Government of India agency, which has been put on the back burner, that media has come off hold with all of a sudden now. And it tells you how badly the economy is faring, the people of this country are faring, because they do not have the money to buy essential items. Let me quickly take in a few comments before I elaborate to you how much the monthly expenditure has changed, or how much the monthly expenses have changed. Darshan writing to us, Indians are not cooking to buy essential items, they're getting delivered through Zomato. All right, so that's satire there coming in. All right, so more and more of you writing to us. Even I didn't buy cloth purchases this Diwali, Jignesh writing. Right, so as I mentioned, so this is cutting across all sectors. So essentially, people do not have money and they're not buying. And this is a Government of India report that is now telling you that for the very first time in last 40 years, since 1970s, the consumer spending is now down. It's down by a marginal 3.7%. So that's not a drastic figure, something that should worry you, the people. But what should worry you is that this has happened for the very first time in last 40 years. And let me give you a quick example of how much the expenditure has changed, how much the monthly expenditure has changed. So back in 2011, we were, spending at least 1,501 rupee in a month. Today, in 2017-2018, we could only spend about 1,446 rupees. What does it mean? It means that people don't have money. It also goes on to suggest that there are increased instances of poverty, that there is less disposable income in the hands of us, the people, and therefore we are not being able to spend money. Now, it is, as I mentioned, more important because in rural India, spending has gone down drastically by approximately 8.8%. In urban India, it has gone down by 2%. So while urban Indians are still happy, they still have the money that they want, rural India is suffering. And all across India, people are not buying essential items. So people are not buying items that you need for cooking. The food item and their consumption is decreasing. This is a sign, ladies and gentlemen, that the economy is not doing too well, that people do not have enough money to buy essential items. It's an important report. It is going to hit hard the point, and it's going to bring home the point that there is problem with the economy right now, that the government needs to focus on the economy as we speak. It needs to spur demand. It needs to make sure that people have enough money to buy. Thanks very much for watching.